Really?
Yeah.
Were you a psychotic bipolar or a neurotic bipolar?
I was neither. I was not bipolar. I was just tendencies to...
But you were prescribed medication. Great psychiatrist you were sent to.
It was a good psychiatrist because I had some tendencies. I remember it's because, I'll tell you the story. So I was at a shul, this Orthodox shul.
Angels getting killed. Yeah.
And I was on probation.
Okay.
Because I'd sold Luke4.com. I was not writing on the porn industry anymore at the time. But, I had this scandalous history, so they said you can come daven, but you can't participate in any other way. So I was there for about 9 months, and they kind of took me off probation, and I went to this lunch. And I had a problem then that I still have now. I'll often lead very lonely life during the week without much social contact. And then when I get around people on Shabbat, I tend to be over the top. Because I'm like so happy to be like mixing with people. And also people are kind of like forced to mix with me on Shabbos because we go to shul, and they don't like leave shul just because I'm there. So it's like, oh, I'm here with people, so happy. So I was over the top at this lunch, and I said it was a singles lunch at the shul, and I said some suggestive things to various women at the lunch, and the rabbi got a call, with complaints. And as I was already, I'd been on probation, he was watching me, everyone was watching me, because everyone knew that I used to write on the porn industry, and any step out of line, bam. So I stepped out of line, bam, the rabbi calls. And he wanted to talk to my psychiatrist, like, what's going on? And so I called my psychiatrist, and my psychiatrist said, well, I don't want to talk to your rabbi. I don't think this reaches to a level where it necessitates, like, breaking patient-doctor confidentiality, etc. But he says, from what you're talking about, it sounds like you might benefit from going on a little bit of lithium. And so he put me on a low dose of lithium, and it really did help. It really evened me out, balanced me out, don't react so quickly. And the same thing with Alexander technique, kind of evens me out, balances me out. I don't react so quickly, so you may say something that's inflammatory, but usually I just stay back, I inhibit, and then I don't live in reaction. Like living in reaction sucks. Living with response is cool. But if you just triggered and react, and you're just living in reaction, like people are triggering you, and you're just reacting all the time, that sucks because you don't have any choice. When you react, you don't have any choice. But if you can stop, inhibit, think your directions, come back to your poise, to your length, to your width, and then choose a response, that's cool. So from years of study and practice of the Alexander technique, I've been able to move from living a life in reaction to living much more with a considered response. But you're right, I should blog about going off medication.
You talked about everything else under the sun.
Yeah.
When it comes to Alexander, it's like every day I look over there, it's like Alexander this and Alexander that. Now there's something interesting. You should put it up there.
You're right. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Next thing.
Israel is the land where God watches you most carefully, and he rewards and punishes you with particular effect. Most people do not want to be watched carefully. They want privacy. Most people don't want an intense relationship with God. I mean, I find it scary. I find intense relationships in general scary, like close, intimate relationships. In many ways, I find them scary. So many people may like dealing with me on occasion, but many of these same people don't want to see me every day. So it's like, if you go to shul once a week, that's not like an intense relationship with God. Like for Christians, going to church once a week, that's an intense relationship with God. Like that's a religious Christian, someone who goes to church once a week. That's a religious Christian. Religious Jew is someone who goes to shul twice a day. So it's a much more intense, much more intimate religion, much more demanding.
I have different
much
definitions.
more difficult.
I have different definitions. Somebody who's Christian, but their entire faith or whatever, their entire practice, if you will, is that they go to church once a week. To me, that's not such a big Christian. A Christian is somebody who's 24/7 Christian and is in your face with Christianity. That's what they think about all day long. That's what they talk about. That's what they're all about. It's like Jesus, 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 and Christianity. It's 24/7, 365. It's not a Sunday-only religion. When it's done like that, that's somebody who's a devout Christian. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm talking around the perspective of most people. Most people, when they hear that someone goes to church every week, they think that's a religious Christian. Most people out in the world.
I don't.
I know you don't, but most people do.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
When a Jew is pluking his wife, should he be thinking about Hashem and Torah?
Why not?
Like, what if she's really hot and taut?
Okay, here I'm going to tell you something that you don't know. The Talmud tells us from the brain of from the head of the brain of the father to the head of the son. Whatever the father is thinking about at the time of conception.
Like Wendy Whoppers.
What?
Big breasted porn star. Like whopping breasts. Like he's imagining he's doing Wendy Whoppers even though he's doing his wife at the time of conception.
Oh, that's sick. Okay.
So how would his son will then grow up to want big breasted women? Tots, hoes.
Let me put it to you this way, lady. If he's whatever it's in his head at the time, right, is going to go into the head of
Wendy Whoppers.
Of the kid, right, of the son. So if he's like reciting a daf of Gemara the whole time.
How many Jewish men recite Gemara while they're plucking their wives? Particularly the moment of conception is when you're coming. Like, have you ever had an orgasm? Like, your whole body, like from the tips of your toes to the top of your head, it's like this tension just kind of builds throughout your body and then comes pouring out. And it's like you can't think about anything else but like how absolutely exquisite and delicious this is and how you feel on top of the world. It's like, yeah, take that, baby. I'm the king of the world.
Well, see, if you had Alexander training, you would not feel that tension.
Right. I'd have to release the tension.
Blog about that tomorrow. Talk about how Alexander can improve your orgasm, make it easier to focus on Torah.
So I asked you a question. How many Jewish men recite Gemara while they're having sex, and should they?
Oh, what?
Should Jewish men be reciting Torah when they're having sex?
It's a high level if you can reach for it. I mean, I think just thinking about God on its own, not reciting any, Gemara is a level. You asked me, should guys do that? That's a level. If you're seriously going to create kids, see, this is the responsibility that people don't understand when they have children. People don't understand this. It's a huge responsibility. This is why I don't get involved in the whole kid thing. You listen to me, lady?
Yeah.
I don't get involved in it because I know I would be a failure as a fucking parent. Okay? I would be a failure as a parent.
Yeah.
Okay? And since I would be a failure as a parent, I don't get involved in it. You understand what I'm saying? Because this makes everything a lot easier for me. I know I'm not having kids. Right? So I can be a screw-off. And I can fill my head with goyish stupidity, such as baseball and whatever, right? Because who am I hurting other than my own neshama? Nobody, right? That's the beauty of me. My greatest thing that I can say when I get out of here, right, and I get to the other side is, I never damaged a child. I never abused another kid in this world, right? And that's my legacy. My legacy is, I am one of the few people on the planet who can say without
fear of contradiction.
Without fear of contradiction, that I never, ever failed even one fraction of percent in raising kids. Because I never abused a kid, I never put a, you know what I mean? It's like everyone else has kids and they're like not perfect. I don't have that situation. I'm never, created a kid who wasn't perfect. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
The high thing, when you're like, what do you call it, plunking?
Pluking.
Your wife, if you're thinking about like physical, just like, I'm getting off, you're missing it. Because if your kid is born from that, what do you think they're going to be just like an animal wanting to buck, right? They're going to be like Mr. Woohoo, right? If you're thinking about God and you're thinking about holiness and you're thinking about, like, even if you're just thinking it's like, the oneness of God, it's like me and my wife and God, we're in a holy trinity, right? And these are the kind of thoughts that are permeating your mind at the time. It's like, boy, right now I'm going to come and it's going to be a kid, and it's going to be a beautiful kid, and we're going to take care of the kid, and the kid's going to go to yeshiva, and the kid's going to be, learning Torah, and he's going to be, he's going to be like a gadol, he's going to be a big Torah, Talmud Chacham, right? So then you say, I got to help the kid out because, what starts off in the brain of the kid is going to become from my brain. So then you start trying to remember something you learned that day. You went to Daf Yomi. What did you learn today, Daf Yomi? You don't remember nothing. What Masech do you on?
Colon.
Colon?
Colon.
Colon. Okay. So, like, you're learning Bas